My girlfriend cheated with her boss. Now she's jobless and here's what I did. Before we dive in, Reddit Pearls needs your help. The channel is struggling, and every like and sub makes a huge difference. I appreciate you sticking around. Now, let's jump into the story. Allison threw it all away 3 years into our relationship with a smirk. It wasn't some tearful confession. It wasn't a moment of guilt or even hesitation. It was cold, confident, as if she were doing me a favor. I discovered the truth on a random evening, the kind that should have ended with takeout and a movie. Instead, it ended with 32 missed calls, a packed bag, and the quiet satisfaction of walking away. There were signs. I'd be lying if I said there weren't. New perfume I didn't recognize. Lingerie that still had tags but no explanation. The way she held her phone like it was made of gold. The constant girls' nights with people I'd never met. I wasn't the jealous type, but my gut wasn't stupid. The tipping point came on a Tuesday. I was folding laundry when her phone lit up on the coffee table. Message from Jay, miss you already. That alone made my stomach twist. I wanted to trust her, but my instincts were screaming. That night, she came home like nothing had happened. Making a smoothie in the kitchen, humming to herself. I stood there, watching the blender roar as if it could drown out everything that was unraveling inside me. When the noise finally stopped, I asked, "Who's Jay?" Her shoulders tensed. Then, she turned to me with a smile, not a sheepish one. Not nervous. This was the smirk of someone who thought they'd won. "Wondering when you'd catch on," she said. "Jay's my boss. And yes, I've been sleeping with him. For 2 months." She didn't even blink. Then came the kicker. I needed a real man. Someone with ambition. Someone who doesn't spend weekends playing games with Jacob or watching trash movies. 3 years, and that's what I got. I asked one more question. Not for her, for me. "Does Chloe know?" Her laugh was sharp. "Oh, Chloe's been known for weeks. So has Jacob. Everyone has. They get it. Jay can offer me a future. You? Just empty dreams." That hit harder than the cheating itself. Our friends knew. And said nothing. I pulled out my phone. Group chat with Chloe and Jacob. Typed, "Is this true? You all knew?" Jacob replied within seconds. "Bro, you're great. But Allison needs stability. Don't take it personally." Chloe added, "We didn't want to hurt you. Maybe this is what you needed. A wake-up call. No rage. No shouting." I just smiled. She wanted drama? She wouldn't get it. I grabbed my go bag from the closet, laptop from the desk, and keys from the hook. Walked past her while she stood there waiting for a scene. "Keep the apartment," I said. "I'm sure Jay can help with the rent." She opened her mouth to speak. I closed the door behind me. My phone buzzed for the next hour. I shut it off. Drove with no destination. For the first time in months, I felt relief. Not because I lost her, but because I saw what I'd never really had. I crashed at a friend's place that night, Micah, one of the few people in my life who had no allegiance to Allison or our circle of mutuals. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer, gestured to the spare couch, and let me sit in silence. The next morning, I woke up to more unread messages than I could scroll through. Allison had sent long paragraphs trying to justify it, twisting it into some narrative about how I let the relationship go stagnant. Chloe followed up with voice notes that ranged from fake sympathetic to passive-aggressive. Jacob, ever the peacemaker, sent a meme and a text that said, "No hard feelings, yeah?" I ignored every one of them. Micah watched me brew coffee in his kitchen and said, "Whatever revenge you're planning, make sure it's smarter than anything they expect." I hadn't planned anything yet, but that planted the seed. See, I wasn't interested in slashing tires or public callouts. That's the kind of drama Allison would thrive on. She needed chaos to stay relevant. What I wanted was something cleaner, something deeper. I didn't want to burn her world down. I wanted to make sure she realized I was never part of her foundation to begin with. Step 1 was cutting off access. I called the bank and froze the joint savings we'd opened for a vacation that now would never happen. The account had more of my money in it than hers, anyway. I canceled the Netflix account I was paying for and transferred the utilities, still in my name, back to myself. Then I sent one text, effective immediately, "You're responsible for all bills at the apartment. Rent included. Good luck." Her response came within seconds, "You're being immature. Grow up." I didn't reply. Micah helped me move into a short-term sublet later that week. A small studio with bad lighting and old carpets, but it felt like freedom. I got a new SIM card, a new routine, and a new silence. Allison didn't take it well. She started posting cryptic captions on Instagram. "Some people aren't who they pretend to be," and "betrayal cuts deep." Friends who had quietly watched from the sidelines messaged me privately. A few apologized. A couple admitted they'd always felt like something was off. One even said, "I didn't want to choose sides, but I'm realizing now there was only one right one." I didn't gloat. I didn't repost. I just lived. Because of the real revenge? It was being untouchable. Update. By week 3, Allison's posts went from cryptic to desperate. Gone were the passive digs and curated photos. Now it was indirect quotes about being misunderstood, about how real love gets tested. It was clear her audience wasn't buying it anymore. I stayed quiet. Still hadn't posted a thing. Still hadn't responded. Because in her world, silence was the one language she never learned to translate. Meanwhile, my new place began to feel like home. I furnished it bit by bit, nothing extravagant, just intentional. A thrifted bookshelf. A coffee table I built myself. A wall of sticky notes filled with creative ideas I'd buried during the final year of our relationship. I poured myself into work and started picking up momentum. More clients. More freedom. For the first time in a long while, I was designing a life that didn't involve shrinking to make someone else comfortable. Then, one afternoon, I got a message request from an unfamiliar name. Jay. We need to talk. Curiosity 1. I accepted it. He opened with, I didn't know she was still with you. She told me you two had broken up months ago. Said you were just roommates clinging to routine. I didn't answer immediately. Just read it, closed my phone, and walked away. Let it simmer. Hours later, I replied, she told me you were her future. Hope she told you everything else too. The messages kept coming. She'd lied about more than just us, about her job, her finances, her past. Jay was unraveling a mess he didn't realize he'd inherited. I didn't feel sorry for him, but I didn't feel vengeful either. Just detached. A few days later, I found out she'd been fired. Office gossip, according to someone I used to know from her building. Jay had ended things. She'd lost the apartment. My name was still on the lease, and she hadn't been able to keep up. She tried reaching out to Jacob and Chloe, but both had gone quiet. Turns out even snakes don't like getting bitten. Micah and I met up that night. I told him the whole thing. So, he said, clinking his glass against mine, you didn't lift a finger and still won. I shrugged. Sometimes the best revenge is realizing they never deserved a front row seat to your life in the first place. He laughed. And here I thought you'd go full nuclear. Nah, I said. Silence works better. It echoes longer. Update. It's been about a month since I walked out of that apartment, and if you'd told me then how this would all unravel, I wouldn't have believed you. I wasn't planning on updates. I wasn't checking Allison's socials. But sometimes the fallout finds its way to your doorstep, whether you want it or not. Last week, I got a call from a mutual acquaintance, someone who used to hang with our group but kept their distance. He called to give me a heads up. Allison had moved back in with her parents. She'd been fired after a manager reported inappropriate conduct with a superior. Turns out Jay wasn't just her boss, he was married. And HR found out. Jay cut her off completely. Blocked her. The career she risked everything for? Gone. And she didn't even get the guy. The apartment was vacated shortly after. She defaulted on rent payments, and since my name had been removed from the lease weeks earlier, it wasn't my mess to clean up. According to the property manager, she left it in terrible condition, broken furniture, stains on the carpet, even mail addressed to Jay. A disaster, just like the relationship that created it. But the real shock came when Chloe reached out. Her message started with, I owe you an apology. She admitted everything. That she and Jacob had been covering for Allison, not because they agreed with her, but because they were afraid of being on her bad side. Allison manipulated everyone around her, keeping people close through secrets and shame. Chloe told me Allison had been spiraling since I left, posting erratically, crying in group chats, even showing up at Chloe's place uninvited, trying to convince her to stage an intervention to bring me back, as if I were the one who needed saving. I didn't respond to Chloe right away. I didn't know what to say. Part of me appreciated the honesty. Part of me didn't care anymore. Micah and I talked about it over coffee. You think she actually regrets it? He asked. I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe she just misses the version of me she thought she could control. The truth is, I've moved on. I've been going to therapy. I've reconnected with friends I lost touch with during the relationship. I'm working on a new project, a short film inspired by everything that's happened. It's raw, honest, probably the best thing I've written in years. I'm not telling this story for revenge anymore. I'm telling it because somewhere out there, someone's being made to feel small by a person who claims to love them. And they deserve to know it's okay to leave. It's okay to outgrow people. And it's okay to start over, even if your voice shakes the first time you say no more. Update. 2 months out, and the silence was finally real. Not the fake kind, the kind you try to force when you're hurt but still secretly watching their every move. This was the kind that settles into your bones. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that says, I'm done. Micah and I had developed a new routine. Saturday morning hikes, coffee runs that turned into full-day brainstorm sessions. I told him about the short film. He loved the idea, even offered to help produce it. It wasn't just therapy anymore. It was art, purpose, a way to build something out of the wreckage. Allison had gone completely dark online. No stories, no updates. Her circle had shrunk. Chloe stopped messaging after I left her last one on read. Jacob sent a final text, just a gif of a peace sign with no context. Closure, I guess. I heard from that same mutual friend again. He said Allison was working retail now, back in her hometown. Still bitter, still blaming everyone but herself. I didn't feel smug. I just felt nothing. That chapter had closed. Meanwhile, the short film gained traction. A producer friend of Micah's wanted to help pitch it to a local festival. We shot the pilot. I narrated it myself. Honest, quiet, clean, no names, no revenge, just truth. The kind of truth you whisper to yourself at 2 a.m. and finally believe. One night, sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, I opened my notes app and scrolled through everything I'd written since the breakup. Pages of it. All the things I never said. The ways I dimmed myself just to keep peace. The red flags I turned into decoration. And then I wrote one last line. I never needed closure. I just needed distance. That's what this story became. Not a comeback. Not a takedown. A release. Because in the end, the greatest one wasn't getting back at Allison. I realized I didn't want to. My thoughts. This story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about transformation. Sometimes, the best thing someone toxic can do for you is reveal who they are. And when they do, it's not your job to fix them. It's your chance to free yourself. No shouting. No drama. Just quiet evolution. And in the end, the peace he built said more than any confrontation ever could. Have you ever stayed silent when someone expected you to break down? Or walked away without needing revenge? Drop your story below. We're listening.